Dr. Elena Kowalski stretched her tired limbs as she stared at the data streaming across her monitor. 3 consecutive nights without proper sleep had left dark circles under her eyes, but excitement kept fatigue at bay. The anomalous signal pattern she detected from Europa's subterranean ocean continued to repeat with mathematical precision. Too perfect to be natural, too complex to be human-made. "You should see this," she called to her colleague, Dr. Marcus Chen, who hovered over her shoulder within moments. "Another false positive?" he asked, voice tinged with the weariness of scientists who'd faced years of disappointment. "No." Elena's finger traced the pattern on screen. "This one's different. The sequence contains embedded prime numbers, followed by what appears to be a geometric representation of our solar system." Within hours, similar signals were detected by observatories across Earth and its colonies. Within days, humanity's questions about extraterrestrial intelligence were answered decisively when massive ships materialized near Earth's orbit, sleek, crystalline structures that reflected sunlight in hypnotic patterns. Global panic ensued. Military forces worldwide mobilized, but remained on standby as world leaders debated appropriate responses. The question of whether to fight or communicate became moot when every screen on Earth simultaneously displayed the same message in perfect English. "People of Earth, we are the Vexari Imperium. Your technological advancement has been monitored and found wanting, yet your potential remains. Intriguing." The transmission revealed a humanoid figure with iridescent scales and 4 arms, adorned with what appeared to be ceremonial armor. The being introduced himself as Supreme Chancellor Zordful, ruler of 17 star systems and overseer of 43 protected species. "Primitive civilizations fall under our guidance," Zorful continued, mandibles clicking between words. "However, our resources are limited. Only species demonstrating exceptional qualities merit independence." Scientists like Elena immediately recognized the implication. Earth was being colonized unless humanity could prove itself valuable enough for autonomy. The terms were delivered without room for negotiation. Humanity would undergo a series of trials designed to test intelligence, innovation, and adaptability. Success would grant Earth protected status with limited self-governance. Failure meant incorporation into the Imperium's workforce, essentially sophisticated slavery. "You have 12 Earth hours to select your representatives," Zorful concluded. "Choose wisely." Emergency sessions of the United Nations stretched through the night. Military options were considered and discarded. Orbital scans revealed defensive systems beyond human comprehension. Fighting would lead to annihilation. Elena found herself summoned to New York alongside a hastily assembled team of Earth's brightest minds. Mathematicians, engineers, diplomats, and creatives drawn from all corners of the globe. In a secured bunker beneath the UN building, Secretary General Okafor addressed the assembled team. "We stand at humanity's most crucial moment," she said, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "These aliens believe us primitive, limited, and predictable. But throughout our history, humans have survived and thrived because we are none of these things." She surveyed the room, making eye contact with each person present. "You've been selected not just for your intelligence, but for your unique perspectives. While the Vexari expect us to think like them, our greatest advantage may be that we don't." As dawn broke over New York, humanity's response was transmitted to the waiting Vexari ships. They would participate in the trials. In orbit, an international space station was quickly repurposed as neutral ground. Elena and 11 others ascended on the last functional spacecraft, their mission simple yet impossible. Demonstrate that humanity's seemingly chaotic, emotional, and unpredictable nature wasn't a weakness, but a strength that even the mighty Vexari Imperium should respect, perhaps even fear. The repurposed space station had been transformed beyond recognition. Vexari technology gleamed from every surface, with holographic displays hovering in midair and gravity shifting subtly between sections. Alina and her fellow representatives were escorted to what appeared to be a conference chamber, where Zorthol waited with 6 other Vexari officials. "Welcome to neutral territory," the Supreme Chancellor said, his voice resonating unnaturally in the enclosed space. "Your species evaluation begins now." A shimmering projection appeared between them. Complex mathematical equations filled the air, rotating slowly to reveal multiple dimensions of calculations. "This problem has remained unsolved by our finest minds for 3 centuries," Zorthol explained with a hint of smugness. "You have 48 Earth hours to provide a solution." The human team was led to separate quarters equipped with alien interfaces that responded to touch and thought. Dr. Mai Chen, a mathematician who had been quietly observing until now, immediately began studying the equations. "These aren't just math problems," she mumbled, eyes darting across floating symbols. "They're testing our approach to problem solving." Mai had built her career challenging mathematical orthodoxy. Her papers on intuitive mathematics had been rejected by mainstream journals until experimental results forced revaluation. Now those same unorthodox methods might save humanity. "The Vexari approach is linear and computational," she explained to the team. "They're expecting us to brute force solutions using their superior technology, which we cannot match." Hours passed as Mai and 3 other mathematicians dissected the problem. Frustration mounted as conventional approaches failed. 20 hours in, exhaustion threatened their focus. During a brief rest period, Alina brought Mai a cup of coffee. "You look like you need this." "Thanks," Mai replied, accepting the drink. She stared absent-mindedly at the ripples in her cup and suddenly froze. "Wait, that's it." She rushed back to the equations. "We've been approaching this from the wrong paradigm entirely. The Vexari see mathematics as fixed and universal, but what if it's contextual?" Mai explained her revelation. The equations weren't meant to be solved within their original framework, but rather required recognizing a pattern that transcended the system itself. The solution was meta-mathematical, something the hyper-rational Vexari struggled to conceive. "It's like trying to solve a 2D problem in 3D space," she explained to the bewildered team. "Impossible until you change your perspective." With renewed energy, the team worked through the night. They developed a solution that didn't just answer the problem but reimagined it entirely, applying principles that blended intuition with logic in a way uniquely human. As the deadline approached, they presented their findings to the Vexari Council. Mai explained their methodology, which combined rigorous mathematics with creative leaps that defied algorithmic thinking. Zorthol's expression remained impassive as he reviewed their work, but the slight twitching of his mandibles betrayed his surprise. The other Vexari officials exchanged glances that even humans could read as astonishment. "Your solution is unexpected," Zorthol finally admitted. "But a single success proves little. Perhaps you simply got lucky." One of the junior Vexari officials leaned forward. "Supreme Chancellor, their approach uses principles we've never." "Silence," Zorthol hissed. He turned back to the humans. "The next challenge will not be so easily conquered by your primitive methods." As the humans were escorted back to their quarters, Alina noticed something significant. The dismissive tone in Zorthol's voice had been replaced by something else. Wariness. "I think we rattled them," she whispered to Mai. The mathematician smiled. "Good, because that was just the beginning." The mood among the human representatives improved after their mathematical victory, but their celebration was short-lived. The station's artificial gravity momentarily faltered as they were summoned to a different section of the station, a cavernous workshop filled with alien technology and components scattered across multiple workstations. "Your second trial begins," Zorthol announced, gesturing toward the equipment. "Construct a functional quantum resonance stabilizer using only these materials. You have 36 hours. Once the Vexari officials departed, the team examined the components with growing concern. Not only was the technology centuries beyond human development, but many pieces appeared damaged or incomplete. "This is impossible," a physicist muttered. Half these components are incompatible with each other. Jamal Washington, a former car mechanic from Detroit who'd risen to prominence designing emergency habitat systems for Mars colonies, ran his hands over the alien metals. Unlike the others, he smiled. They've sabotaged it on purpose, he said. Look here, this power coupling is designed to overload if connected directly to this regulator. Alina frowned. How can you tell? Because I've spent my life fixing things that weren't supposed to be fixed, Jamal explained. The Vexari think like manufacturers who expect customers to buy new parts. Humans think like people who can't afford replacements. Jamal had grown up in a neighborhood where new things were luxury items. He'd learned to repair everything from ancient refrigerators to salvaged computers, using whatever materials were available. That mindset had later served him well designing systems for Mars, where Earth shipments were months apart. The Vexari are testing if we'll blindly follow intended configurations, he explained. But there's always a workaround. Under Jamal's guidance, the team cataloged every component, identifying original purposes and potential alternative uses. They discovered that cooling fluid meant for one system could serve as a conductor for another. A communications relay could be repurposed as a power regulator if its internal crystals were reconfigured. This reminds me of the Great Blackout, said Dr. Hiroshi Tanaka, a quantum engineer. Remember how people built generators from bicycle parts and car alternators? Jamal nodded. Exactly. Human ingenuity thrives under constraints. As hours passed, they constructed something that resembled the quantum stabilizer in concept, but looked nothing like what the Vexari likely expected. Jamal insisted on building redundant systems using scrap pieces, a habit from his Mars days, where equipment failure meant death. When Zorthol and his officials returned, they stared at the contraption with visible confusion. This is not a standard configuration, one official observed. No, Jamal agreed, but it works better than standard. He activated the device, which hummed to life with a soft blue glow. We've improved efficiency by 23% by reconfiguring the internals and added a self-diagnostic system using parts you considered waste. He demonstrated how their design included fail-safes and workarounds that allowed operation even if components failed, concepts seemingly foreign to the Vexari's redundancy-free engineering philosophy. Zorthol's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign Alina had begun to recognize as agitation. Functional, yes, but inelegant and chaotic in design. With respect, Jamal replied, elegance is luxury. Survival requires adaptability. As the Vexari departed to deliberate, Alina noticed something through a viewport. Several Vexari ships had changed position, moving closer to Earth's defense satellites. They're not just evaluating us, she whispered to the others. They're preparing contingencies if we continue to succeed. Maid nodded grimly. Then we'd better keep surprising them. The human team was granted 8 hours of rest before being summoned to a new chamber. This one featured a circular table surrounded by holographic displays. Zorthol stood with 3 other Vexari officials, their postures noticeably stiffer than before. Your species has demonstrated unexpected technical aptitude, the Supreme Chancellor admitted, mandibles twitching. However, true intelligence encompasses more than solving equations or building devices. Your third trial tests your capacity for complex social reasoning. The central hologram activated, displaying 3 distinct alien species the humans had never seen before. Detailed information appeared about each, their biology, societal structures, and resource requirements. These are the Moravi, the Gestalt, and the Tundari, Zorthol explained. 3 species competing for resources on a shared world. Your task is to devise a sustainable solution to their conflict that maximizes productivity while minimizing violence. Ambassador Sofia Mendoza, a veteran diplomat who had brokered peace in several Earth conflicts, studied the information. According to the briefing, the Moravi were aquatic communal beings who needed mineral-rich water bodies. The Gestalt were hive-minded forest dwellers requiring specific fungal ecosystems, and the Tundari were nomadic desert entities dependent on solar radiation cycles. The Vexeri solution to this scenario resulted in 82% resource efficiency, Zorthal added, but required significant population control measures. Sophia exchanged glances with her teammates. The implication was clear. The Vexeri had sacrificed lives for efficiency. "We'll need more comprehensive information about their cultures," Sophia requested. "Language patterns, art forms, historical conflicts, religious beliefs." One Vexeri official made a dismissive gesture. "Such factors are irrelevant to optimal resource allocation." "With respect," Sophia countered, "they're essential to human problem-solving approaches." After some discussion among themselves, the Vexeri reluctantly provided additional data. The team spent hours analyzing not just the practical needs of each species, but their values and emotional frameworks. "Look here," Sophia pointed out. "The Moravi communication includes ritualized pauses we initially interpreted as transmission errors. They're not errors, they're emotional indicators. And the Gestalt color shifting isn't purely biological, it's a sophisticated language." As the deadline approached, Sophia presented their solution. Rather than focusing solely on resource division, they proposed a symbiotic arrangement. The mineral runoff from Moravi aquatic habitats could nourish specific Gestalt fungi, while the Tundari's solar collection technology could be modified to provide light for deeper Moravi waters. Most importantly, Sophia explained, this plan recognizes and respects each species' cultural imperatives. The Moravi need communal gathering pools, which are design preserves. The Gestalt require consensus-building spaces, which we integrated. The Tundari's nomadic ceremonies can continue along established routes we've carefully maintained. As she spoke, Sophia noticed one Vexeri official, younger than the others, with lighter-colored scales, watching with unmistakable interest. Zorthal reviewed their proposal with growing agitation. "Your solution achieves only 78% resource efficiency, objectively inferior, but requires zero population reduction," Sophia countered, "and likely produces greater stability long-term by honoring cultural needs alongside biological ones. Peace isn't just the absence of conflict, it's the presence of justice and dignity." The younger Vexeri stepped forward. "Supreme Chancellor, their approach merits consideration. The Kelmeri uprising demonstrated that efficiency without cultural accommodation leads to..." "Silence, Krelvor." Zorthal snapped. "Return to your station." As the humans were escorted back to their quarters, Krelvor briefly fell into step beside Sophia. "Your species thinks differently," he whispered. "Some of us find this intriguing. Not all Vexeri share the Supreme Chancellor's views." Before Sophia could respond, he quickened his pace and disappeared down a corridor, leaving her with a growing realization. The human team wasn't just proving humanity's worth. They were inadvertently exposing fractures within Vexeri society itself. The human team gathered in their quarters, sharing observations about Krelvor's surprising interaction with Sophia. Alina paced the room, her scientific mind cataloging patterns in Vexeri behavior. 3 trials, 3 successes, she said. And with each one, Zorthal grows more agitated while some junior Vexeri show interest in our methods. Jamal nodded. They expected us to fail. We're disrupting something bigger than these tests. Their discussion was interrupted when the station's lighting shifted to a deep crimson. The door slid open, revealing 6 Vexeri guards with weapons drawn. "By order of Supreme Chancellor Zorthal, you will follow immediately," the lead guard commanded. They were escorted to the command center, a vast chamber they hadn't previously seen. Holographic displays showed Earth from multiple angles, with ominous targeting markers hovering over major cities. Zorthal stood at the center, his posture rigid with barely contained fury. "Your species continues to demonstrate unexpected qualities," he said, mandibles clicking rapidly. "A High Council requires further study of human cognitive processes. I am therefore adjusting the terms of our arrangement." The largest display shifted to show a new message being broadcast to Earth. The Vexari now demanded 50,000 human volunteers for research purposes, primarily scientists, engineers, and creatives. "This is not what we agreed to," Alina protested. "We've passed every test you've given us." "You've employed deception and unorthodox methods," Zorfol countered. "The mathematical solution relied on principles outside established parameters. The engineering task was completed using improper configurations. The social challenge response prioritized inefficient cultural accommodation over resource optimization." He gestured toward Earth on the display. "Your species requires proper guidance to reach its potential. The most promising specimens will serve the Imperium directly." Alina noticed something the others might have missed. Several junior Vexari officers exchanging glances, their body language suggesting disagreement. Krelvor stood among them, his posture particularly tense. The human team was escorted back to their quarters, now under armed guard. The mood was somber as they confronted the reality of their situation. "He never intended to honor the agreement," May said quietly. "The tests were just to assess our capabilities before exploitation." Lucas Kim, a former video game designer who specialized in network infrastructure, had been the quietest member of their team until now. "While you've all been focusing on the challenges, I've been studying their systems," he revealed. "This station's network architecture has similarities to Earth technology. It's just vastly more advanced." "What are you suggesting?" Sophia asked. "Their communications, defense systems, even life support. Everything connects through quantum-entangled pathways, similar to our theoretical models," Lucas explained. "Alina's background in xenolinguistics might be the key. She's been analyzing their communication patterns since first contact." Alina's eyes widened with realization. "You're right. There's a pattern to their quantum frequency shifts that correlates with their language structure." "If we could temporarily disrupt their systems," Lucas began. "We might create an opening," Jamal finished. "But for what? We're 12 humans against an alien armada." Sophia's diplomatic mind made the connection. "We don't need to defeat them militarily. We need to expose the truth to the right audience." She lowered her voice further. Krelvor and the others who seemed to question Zordfol's methods. As Earth's government scrambled to respond to the Vexari's new demands, the human team worked through the night, formulating a desperate counter-strategy that would require every bit of their combined brilliance. "I'm not sure this will work," May admitted. "It has to," Alina replied, her gaze fixed on the distant blue sphere of Earth visible through the viewport. "There's no other option. We have 18 hours before Earth is expected to begin the selection process for volunteers," Alina said, her voice steady despite the gravity of their situation. "That's our window." The human team had converted their quarters into an impromptu command center. Jamal and Lucas had disassembled several devices from previous challenges, repurposing components into makeshift tools. May worked on complex calculations while Sophia drafted a carefully worded message. "The Vexari communication system uses quantum entanglement," Lucas explained, sketching a diagram. "Their technology is centuries beyond ours, but the principles are similar to theoretical models we've developed. They've networked their entire fleet this way, which means a vulnerability in one node could affect them all," Jamal added, examining a crystalline component he'd secretly pocketed during the engineering challenge. Elena had been correlating linguistic patterns with the quantum frequency shifts she'd observed in Vexari communications. Their language structure isn't just for communication. It's embedded in their technology. Each command has a corresponding frequency that creates a cascade effect through their systems. The plan they developed was audacious. Using components salvaged from their quarters and knowledge gained through the challenges, they would create a brief disruption in the station's communication array, just long enough to broadcast a carefully crafted message to the entire Vexari fleet. "We're not trying to defeat them militarily," Sophia reminded everyone. "We're aiming for hearts and minds, or whatever Vexari have that's equivalent." Lucas nodded. "Specifically, Krelvor and others who seemed skeptical of Zorthol's methods. "They're our true audience." Executing the plan required perfect timing. Jamal created a device that could interface with the station's systems using what they'd learned from the engineering challenge. Mai calculated the precise frequencies needed for maximum disruption with minimum damage. Alina prepared linguistic algorithms to ensure their message would translate correctly across Vexari dialects. While the others worked, Sophia had been meticulously compiling evidence. Inconsistencies in Zorthol's statements, modifications made to the challenge parameters after human successes, and records of discussions where junior officers raised concerns only to be silenced. "The Vexari value data and evidence," she explained. "Our message needs to be irrefutable." When the station entered its low-activity cycle, equivalent to Earth's night, they enacted their plan. Using access credentials Lucas had observed during their movements around the station, they reached a secondary communication node. "Now," Elena whispered. Jamal activated their device. For 3 seconds, the station's lights flickered as systems momentarily destabilized. In that brief window, Lucas initiated the broadcast, a comprehensive message to the entire Vexari fleet, including evidence that Zorthol had consistently manipulated the trials, concealed human successes from the Vexari High Council, and planned for conquest, regardless of the outcome. The message concluded with Sophia's carefully crafted proposal: cooperation instead of subjugation. With humans offering unique perspectives the Vexari civilization clearly lacked. Alarms blared as the system detected the unauthorized broadcast. Guards rushed toward their location, weapons ready. "Did it work?" May asked, as they raised their hands in surrender. Before anyone could answer, the station shuddered violently. Through a viewport, they saw multiple Vexari ships changing formation, some moving away from Earth, others repositioning around the flagship. "Something's happening within their fleet," Jamal observed. The lead guard received a communication that caused him to hesitate, mandibles twitching in apparent confusion. Instead of arresting the humans, he ordered his team to escort them to a secure holding area. As they were led away, Alina caught a glimpse of a communication screen showing dozens of Vexari ships broadcasting the same message simultaneously. Command authority disputed. "It worked," she whispered to the others. "The Vexari aren't unified anymore." But their moment of hope was short-lived as Zorthol's voice thundered through the station. "Commence limited strike. Target human population centers." Chaos erupted throughout the station as alarms blared continuously. The human team was thrust into a holding cell while their Vexari guards responded to multiple emergency signals. Through the transparent barrier, they watched Vexari officers rushing through corridors, many openly arguing, a behavior they hadn't witnessed before. "Zorthol's ordered an attack on Earth," Alina said grimly, monitoring the distant Vexari ships through the small viewport. Several vessels had broken formation, accelerating toward Earth with ominous purpose. Mai pressed her hand against the barrier. "We've caused division in their ranks, but not quickly enough to prevent the strike." The cell door suddenly hissed open. Krelvor stood there, flanked by 4 Vexari officers whose insignia differed from those they'd seen before. "Your message has reached the High Council," Krelvor said urgently. "Zorthol's authority is being questioned, but he controls enough ships to inflict significant damage to your world. We must act quickly." The renegade Vexari led them through maintenance corridors to a secondary command center. Multiple displays showed the unfolding crisis: Earth's defensive systems activating, Vexari ships divided into opposing formations, and the first energy weapons firing, not at Earth, but between Vexari vessels. "Civil conflict," Sophia observed. "Your society is fracturing." "The Imperium has long debated our approach to developing species," Krelvor explained. "Zorthol represents the traditional faction that believes in subjugation and resource extraction. Others of us advocate for cooperative advancement." Jamal studied the tactical displays. "Those ships will reach Earth in minutes. Your political debate won't help us then." "No," Krelvor agreed, "but your ingenuity might." He gestured to a bank of controls. This is a weapons development laboratory. Zorthul ordered prototype defense systems installed on this station. They're not fully tested, but we can modify them. Lucas interrupted, already examining the alien interface. The same principles we used for the broadcast could work here, but on a larger scale. Working with desperate speed, the human team and rebel Vexari officers reconfigured the prototype system. Jamal applied what he'd learned from the engineering challenge to reroute power systems. Mai calculated targeting algorithms while Elena translated human commands into Vexari operational language. We need to disable those ships without destroying them, Sophia insisted. Killing Vexari will only validate Zorthul's position that humans are a threat. On the displays, they watched the first energy blasts strike Earth's atmosphere, creating devastating aurora-like effects over major cities. Defense satellites were obliterated instantly. Millions would die if the attack continued. Ready, Lucas announced, finalizing the modified targeting system. The hybrid human Vexari weapon activated, sending precisely calibrated quantum disruption waves toward the attacking ships. One by one, the vessels faltered, their propulsion and weapons systems failing as the carefully designed pulse affected only military systems while leaving life support intact. On the main communication channel, they heard Zorthul raging. "This is impossible. How could primitive humans counter our technology?" A new voice responded, a senior Vexari official whose elaborate headdress marked supreme authority. "They didn't do it alone, Zorthul. Your deception is exposed. The High Council has reviewed their evidence. Stand down immediately." In the command center, humans and rebel Vexari watched as loyalist ships were surrounded and disabled. Krelvor turned to Elena with an expression that, despite alien features, unmistakably conveyed respect. "Your species approached problems in ways we never considered," he said. "Perhaps that is why the Founders' protocols insisted we test emerging civilizations rather than simply conquering them. We've forgotten much over the millennia." As Earth's government scrambled to assess the damage and respond to the partial attack, the human team realized they'd achieved more than survival. They'd fundamentally changed how the most powerful civilization in known space viewed humanity. "What happens now?" Jamal asked. Sophia smiled grimly. "Now comes the hard part. Diplomacy." 6 months after what Earth's media called the Vexari crisis, Geneva's skyline had been transformed. Where once stood the historic Pallid nations, now rose a gleaming structure of terrestrial and alien design, the newly established Interspecies Diplomatic Center. Energy shields developed with Vexari technology protected it from lingering anti-alien sentiment, though such incidents had decreased markedly since reconstruction aid began flowing to damaged cities. Elena stood on the center's observation deck, watching delegates from 17 nations converge for today's historic ceremony. Beside her, Krelvor adjusted his environmental suit, unnecessary but worn as a courtesy to humans still uncomfortable with Vexari physiology. "The High Council's formal recognition ceremony begins in 1 hour, he reminded her. "Are you prepared?" She nodded, remembering how much had changed. Zorthul and his loyalists had been removed from power, facing justice under Vexari law. The Imperium, shaken by evidence of corruption and manipulation, had undergone significant reforms. Most importantly for Earth, humans had been officially classified as equals, the first species in a millennium to earn this designation without centuries of probationary status. "I never expected to become an ambassador to an alien civilization," Elena admitted. "I was just a xenolinguist studying signals from Europa. And I never expected to be appointed diplomatic overseer," Krelvor replied. "Life contains unanticipated variables, something your species helped us remember." The original human team had been dispersed to various roles in the new relationship. Mai led a joint mathematics institute developing hybrid approaches to previously unsolvable problems. Jamal headed engineering exchanges, bringing human improvisation to rigid Vexari designs. Sophia coordinated diplomatic efforts between Earth's fractious nations and the equally divided Vexari political factions. Lucas pioneered communications protocols that allowed humans to access the vast Vexari information network safely. The technology exchange has accelerated our development by centuries, Alina noted, watching a transport vessel utilizing gravity manipulation land smoothly on the center's platform. But I suspect what they value most is our perspective. Indeed, Krelvor's mandibles clicked in what Alina now recognized as thoughtful agreement. The Imperium had become calcified, efficient but unchanging. Your species introduces beneficial chaos. The ceremony proceeded with surprising warmth despite the formal protocols. The Vexari High Counselor, a venerable figure whose scales had faded to pale blue with age, presented Earth's representatives with a crystal sphere containing a quantum-entangled communication node, symbolic access to the greater galactic community. Humanity has demonstrated qualities the Founders sought to preserve when establishing the trials, the High Counselor announced. Creativity within constraints, empathy balancing efficiency, cooperation emerging from diversity. These traits once defined the Vexari before imperial stability became our sole objective. As the delegation prepared to depart for the first official human visit to the Vexari homeworld, Alina received an urgent notification. A technician guided her to a monitoring station, where a familiar pattern flashed across the screen, a signal similar to the one she'd originally detected, but coming from much farther away. "We're detecting transmissions from 7 different systems," the technician explained. They began moments after the recognition ceremony was broadcast across the entanglement network. Krelvor studied the data, mandibles clicking rapidly. Others are watching. The quarantine is lifting. Alina looked at the star map showing the signal origins. What quarantine? There are older civilizations beyond the Imperium's boundaries, Krelvor explained. Some who withdrew from galactic affairs millennia ago. They appear to be responding to your species' emergence. As humanity celebrated its new place in the galactic community, Alina realized they had accomplished more than saving Earth from conquest. By demonstrating their unique brilliance against would-be tyrants, humans had inadvertently announced their presence to powers even the Vexari approached with caution. "It seems," she said quietly, "our greatest challenges may still lie ahead." Krelvor's gesture approximated a human smile. "And that, Ambassador Kowalski, is precisely why the galaxy needs humanity."